All right. So I think we can get started. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Istio Networking community meeting. We have one item on the agenda, but a very interesting one. So it's a proposal, Istio CNI proposal by team. And there have been already a bunch of emails exchanged on the subject. So I think there'll be quite an interesting and exciting discussion. And I wonder, Tim, if you could start by giving an overview. Maybe not everybody in the meeting had the time to read the document, so that would be helpful to get a good discussion. And feel free to present.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So yeah, this started because of Raphael's presentation last 2 weeks ago on the pod network controller. I started investigating the CNI more because I thought it fit a little bit better and would solve some of the problems that we were talking about last time with the synchronization. And my colleague Robert Lee and I had been discussing the CNI as well as a solution for the IP table setup, also in the context of like IPv6 and dual stack and stuff. So I went ahead and created a POC. Sorry if I'm sharing the actual views. So yeah, I went ahead and created a POC with a quick implementation based on the sample CNI plugin, which is really basic, and then and borrowed a lot of the install stuff that Calico does. So you'll see references to Calico in the implementation details, but really this doesn't depend on Calico in any way. So it's just a implementation that's requires just that the Kubernetes cluster has the CNI plugin enabled, and it and then your normal IPAM plugin or whatever you've got for actually doing pod networking. This plugin will just inject, or the installation will just inject the configuration of this Istio CNI plugin into the plugin chain at the end, and it's sort of just a pass through. So all the API events, it's really just returning the previous result of the prior plugin in the chain, and just doing the handling the command add action only, and doing the IP table setup for the redirect to the sidecar Istio proxy. So I'll quickly, I think maybe it's better to visually show what happens during the usage, and then we can talk about the implementation a little bit more if anybody has questions. So I wrote up in the README a quick set of info on how to use this. In a normal kubeatom install, you shouldn't have to actually even change any of these options unless you installed Istio in a different namespace other than Istio system. So the way it works is there's a Helm chart that has, sorry, not a Helm chart, just a regular manifest that will create the cluster role and role binding for a service account that is usable by the actual plugin. And
sorry to interrupt. Could you please increase the font if it's easy to do so in the...
In GoLand, you can just Command plus or Control plus.
Yeah, that's what I was going to try.
If it works. If not, we'll just move closer.
I'll move closer. For that. Sorry about that. Is it okay if I just continue? Or?
Yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, so this manifest is very similar to the Calico manifest in the aspect of just creating a service account and a daemon set. So the service account has really just get privileges on the pods. And then the daemon set is really just the installer. So this is the thing that goes and copies the binaries into the binder for the CNI plugin, and it injects the configuration into the config file that's set up in the CNI config directory.
One question. So the daemon set is going to run one process in each node.
Yeah.
And this process is watching for pod creation and then is doing the initialization.
So this is this is just for installing the plugin onto each node. So the plugin actually runs as an exec from kubelet.
Oh, so it's an exec.
Yeah. So kubelet invokes the CNI plugins to manage the network interfaces. So to create the network interface, give it an IP address. So I think here this is like what they'll do after, right? It's a chain.
Right. No, this does the install.
Yeah, this does the install, but I think Austin was asking how it works.
If it is, is it possible to also run it permanently? I mean, to have some process that is resident and it's also watching for other stuff?
No.
Yeah, no, you can have a daemon set run a process that's there all the time.
This is just exec.
This is not doing that.
But the CNI is invoked.
Yeah,
like
but
kubelet.
you can still have some other process run by the daemon set.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. That's what Calico does actually. So the Calico daemon set deployment is multiple containers in the pod, and that's where they run their node agent. And this is just. They also run the install container there, but so we don't have a need for the node agent right now. So I just have.
Yeah, but we'll probably have. I mean, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, in the future it might. Yeah, exactly.
But so I have a question. So your proposal works in addition to existing plugins that manage the networks and the interfaces and the IP addresses, right? Exactly.
Yeah. So I was going to show.
Yeah.
How that actually works. So this is that's a green screen here, and I should be able to increase the font on this one.
Yeah.
This is a host that's a all-in-one right here. I have another screen where I can show the GKE setup, but so this is the precondition right now for the plugins not running yet. So this is just a regular Calico config, and you can see there's a generic header for which CNI version, and then a plugin list. And so even Calico uses a chained approach, so they don't just install this singular thing. They have a port map plugin as well. They always seem to use. But the way that this works is the kubelet calls this in exactly this order. So each one of these types refers to a binary in the CNI binder, and so each pod event or pod creation event that the kubelet will call in every plugin in this chain, and it'll pass for like the port map plugin. The result from the Calico plugin would be in the message that it gets invoked with, or the parameters that it gets invoked with. So similarly, so what this install script does is just it sets up another entry in this list with the configuration of the Istio CNI plugin.
And sorry, so these are executed in order, right? The plugins.
Exactly. And then the reverse order on delete.
But they are executed in order, but somehow there is is it a chain, or it's each of them executed individually? Is there any like input output? I think the last one has to provide the IP address, right?
Yeah.
Standard out, but other than that.
Exactly. So the executable for port map would see the result of what this Calico plugin, and then the port map plugin may add or change something in there. But it can, like similar to what I'd done, it can just take the result that it saw from the previous one and just return it if it added no new IP address or anything like that. So that's how you can kind of just be invisible a little bit in the chain here, and not disturb what the other plugins are doing.
Okay, I mean this is great. And if I have two CNI plugins, then is there a way to control the order? Like I have one for, let's say, network policy, and I want another one for IP addresses.
You would need to control the order by this this list order.
Oh, okay, so it all goes in the same file. All right, thanks so much.
That's part of the CNI specification. So the way that to install I'm gonna just apply this manifest to go ahead and install the plugin, and we should see. So it injected at the end of this. In this install script is just using JQ to inject this. So it's just created another list entry with all the with the reference to the executable, and then the parameters that for the plugin. So that's how it gets configured, and this happens on a per node basis. So that's why it's a daemon set. So all those containers that I just referred to, they're running on each node, and they run. It's just a bash script that installs these configs, and also there's a in the bin directory we see that there's an Istio CNI executable, and then I just put the Istio IP tables sh script that sets up IP tables, and so this on command adds this Istio CNI will figure out whether the pod is an Envoy enabled sidecar pod, and then run. If it is, it'll run this executable. The Istio IP tables sh with the right parameters. So I can show that. I'll just I'll do like the book info example. So I have this set up with Istio already. So Istio's installed an Istio system, and I've there's no book info. I've already got the book info route rule set up, so we don't have to play with that. Sorry, my history is screwed up here. Oh, on my node. So book info with the sidecars being created is getting set up right now. And then I forgot to show earlier that this is just the daemon set sitting there. So that bash script that did the install, I just have a while sleep in there so it doesn't kill the daemon set.
So are these without the init container to do the IP table that you're deploying?
Yeah,
okay.
Thanks for I forgot to mention that. So exactly. So the way this would work, it replaces the init container, so we don't need to have that in the auto sidecar inject.
So are you running IP tables from inside the CNI plugin? Like really?
It attaches to the process namespace.
No, well, yes, NS enters into the names, so it runs NS enter with IP table and so the parameters that the CNI plugin get from kubelet includes the Kubernetes pod net namespace, so I don't have to look that up in any special way. And so it just uses that to NSEnter into the pod net namespace and then runs IP tables. But the thing that has to happen though is the Kubernetes, the plugin accesses the kube API. So it has to get the pod info to get all the container ports for the pod.
Oh,
So,
I see.
Yeah. And then it also uses that pod info to determine whether the pod has an Envoy sidecar. So that's kind of hard coded right now. I just check, okay, is this pod, does it have a pod container named Istio proxy, and is the number of containers greater than 1? Okay, then it's, I assume it's an Istio user container.
So here, instead of IP table, can't we create like v pair from?
Yeah, no. So that's
because it's a single.
But it will not work.
It won't work.
Once we have support for it, yeah, that's
the whole thread went to that direction. So immediately.
Oh, okay, I see.
We are very excited about this.
Yeah. No, we were thinking about it more like from the IPv6 and dual stack support level, but yeah, you guys went right to the how do we get Envoy out of the sidecar. So
yeah, for IPv6 we also need to fix the deny rules that we have at the end of the IP table script. I don't know if you. So.
Yeah. So this is you can see the template for the sidecar auto injector. It has no init containers section, and then when we look at an individual container, let's look at. All right, this is kind of boring, but.
Yeah, so question where you're doing that. So does this plugin would always watch out all the pods on this particular node that's not belonging to Istio system namespace? And as soon as it reaches running, assuming it has the Envoy proxy, you would, I mean, how do you ensure you are doing it as soon as at the right timing, as soon as the pod is becoming active?
Yeah, great question. So that's inherent in Kubernetes scheduling. So the way when the scheduler is going to create the pod, there's kubelet gets an event to create the network namespace even before the pod is. It's only after the pause container started, I think, and it doesn't even attempt to download the images or anything for the other containers in the pod until this plugin chain runs. So
it's not
inherent synchronization there on the kubelet.
So basically, when it's running, it should already be configured because you are doing it really early in the cycle before the image is even downloaded, right?
Yeah,
that's the main difference between this approach and the other one with the daemon set, because the other one couldn't guarantee that it runs before anything is started. So that's
I agree. Yeah, Andre,
this is like the right place to do the work, really.
Yeah.
And so I'm not sure if if it's clear for you, Linda, this is not like the Kubernetes controllers approach. When you have a process running, watching for resources in Kubernetes, this is something that gets invoked by the kubelet. So it's really for each pod, you get an invocation.
Right. It wasn't super clear, but now I think Tim just made it super clear. So
yeah, excellent.
Great. Yeah.
And I want to remind people from the 2 or 3 weeks ago or more that we discussed the other problem where Envoy startup can be slower than the application startup, and we may get up a few seconds where things are not in a good order. And the idea of moving some caching or pre-pooling some configuration in the init container, so that the actual Envoy, when Envoy runs, it also has some warmed up configuration, basically some warming that can be done. So that was the plan at that point, to modify the init container to do something to help the proxy to start faster.
Right, and that can be moved
blocking the completion of CNI.
Or blocking the completion of CNI until Envoy is started. Again, the whole interest that we have in running Envoy or integrating more the sidecar container with the CNI plugin is in part to address those kind of problems.
Right.
That's why I keep asking about,
But I'm not sure you can do that though, because your Envoy has to be downloaded, and the download, like the actual image.
If it's in the daemon set, it's also
yeah, that's true. If it's somewhere else, yeah.
Or we can fetch from pilot the configuration. We can have something that just fetches an initial configuration from pilot, and then when Envoy is starting it already, I mean, it can store the file somewhere, I believe.
So you're talking not about when Envoy is injected into the pod, when Envoy is running.
So we're saying that
right?
You don't need to do webhook injection of Envoy into the pod anymore.
Yeah.
So not only a init container goes away, but the Envoy container also goes
exactly.
away.
Even before we do that, there are some options to alleviate the problems we are seeing right now with the startup, and even before we go to the full
So, but this requires like changing the kubelet, the command line, right? Which is something that we don't have access to, or do we actually?
No, that's what CNI lets you do, right? CNI gives you a means to basically inject a step of behavior into the kubelet's flow of initializing a pod.
No, but I mean,
you don't need to change
the CNI plugin itself to say that, hey, this is a new CNI plugin that I want you to invoke.
Right. So that's what the existing daemon set that Tim just showed
It's enough to deploy it in that directory, and it will be loaded by Kubernetes API server. So the only thing, so when you start Kube API server, you have an option where you say, where is the CNI plugin? And if you put == CNI, it goes to the directory that Tim showed in the beginning and loads everything that's in there.
Well,
so you don't need to change you don't need to restart your server.
Right, you're exactly right. The part where it's a little kludgy is that it looks at only the first. This is maybe a Kubernetes specific thing, but it only looks at the first file in this directory, lexicographically. So it's you have to add the chain approach. You have to be able to detect the first file and then go and inject your config into that file. So it's a single file,
either way, this problem space is well understood, right? There are a lot of CNI vendors today doing this. So.
No, but my question is, like, does it require, I mean, what happens in a managed Kubernetes environment? Like, can you just inject your own CNI plugin, or does it require you to have handle over the Kubernetes API server?
You have to be able to have access to to this file system location on the host. So when I run that container as and I basically mount this path into the container, and then that has to be so you basically have to know this path. These are command line options in kubelet. So you do kind of like for each hosted Kubernetes environment, these things could change, right? So you
but yeah, true. Your higher level question, yes, all the hosted Kubernetes offerings support CNI that I'm aware of.
No, they support. I'm saying, will they support you adding your own CNI plugin, or do they support only those that they have already configured?
As far as I'm aware, every hosted Kubernetes offering supports bring your own CNI. That's what
so the question,
does, right? Like,
the question is whether you need to you need to restart. Do you need to restart your API? So does the Kubernetes infra read that file every time a new pod is created, or it reads it once in the beginning and then relies on the list?
I'm not sure.
Does anybody know?
Or if it's able to detect changes to the file system, or but it definitely takes effect every single. I could like I showed you in this demo. I already have all these pods, up and running, and kubelets running, and I changed that Istio CNI install, changed it, and it didn't restart kubelet. It just
because it's exact, right?
Yeah.
This is excellent.
And I don't believe anyone is proposing to kind of drop the existing injection completely. I mean, this will be an option for clusters where you have CNI, and this is possible. And if it is not possible, we fall back to.
We may shift our recommendation.
Of course, if you can do that, do it. Otherwise, fall back, and you'll not have a perfect experience, but it's still working. So.
Right.
And by the way, I just found an example on the web. You can write a CNI plugin using Bash in a few steps. right?
Yeah,
if you are able to manage your IP addresses,
I mean, that's more complicated for us.
No, but like it's a fairly simple thing, right? So
yeah, I think I have one that's host that's done it, but maybe not. It is pretty simple. I can post that if people are interested.
Yeah. So I mean, I reached out to Tim Hawken and some other folks in the Kubernetes world who have a lot of experience with CNI. So I'm trying to get some feedback from them about maintainability or reliability concerns with CNI as a mechanism for doing that. So hopefully we'll get some of that feedback, or at least know where the pitfalls are, because it would be good to have that. And I think I see Spike's on the call. He would obviously be good to talk to the other folks doing the other parts of what CNI is doing, like Calico or Cilium. You know, when we were going to be recommending solutions where those two things were stacked, like what are the best practices? Because clearly that's going to happen. Right?
Yeah, and I think us being at the end is probably a good.
Oh yeah.
Unless someone else wants to be at the end of the chain.
Well, then they can be after us.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really. I don't think it's really material like where in the chain we run, right?
Well,
as long as it's after the initial networking.
While we're doing IP tables, that's probably true. If we're doing something other than IP tables, like let's say the user space IP or eBPF, then there's a more detailed conversation to be had.
Right, but that all goes with config that we publish that says here if you're using the CNI plugin.
Yeah, so we'll just make sure we work with everybody to make sure that we fit in.
It's certainly, for all the other discussion we have eBPF and so forth, it's certainly better to be in the CNI world than to be in the executive.
Right.
So,
definitely.
Right. So in here, we'll just replace whatever the CNI does with IP table with eBPF or maybe there be other solutions, right?
Yeah, that's the trick, how to integrate with others. I mean, when we get to more advanced stuff, but
this seems unambiguously better than what we have today, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, I actually want to ask people because we had the other proposal using the pod network controller, right? And I see Raphael and Andrew. I don't see them online, so we kind of need to converge as a community to one solution. So
they're very similar in implementation. It's I think this just adds an extra step. I don't know if the code is shared, how much code is shared and how much, but
it's really simple code. I mean, it's just the only thing that is really is doing is accessing the Kube API to get the pod.
Right. I think that's a big difference, right?
That's I mean, but
not having to connect to the Kube API server and reading from pod info and getting the init hook that way. Because right now, Raphael's stuff has to poll.
But it's still he still needs to read the pod info and he still needs to. I mean, there's a main difference.
Well, I think he was reading the pod spec.
Yeah, I know.
Whereas
this one is also reading the pod spec.
No, it's reading pod info mounted in the file system, copied by the kubelet.
Are you reading the pod info from? No, he's connected to API server and reading from. I mean, implementation of this. I mean, you could maybe, I don't know. But
I think you get the pod as a part of the kubelet call,
Tim,
right?
Can you answer this?
Yes. The one thing I would like the CNI, the Kubernetes parameters to be more complete would be a little a lot more detail in the what we get from Kubernetes. So we really only get a few things in the from actual Kubernetes. So we use. Sorry, I'm trying to find the code here, but
yes, that's exactly what you are.
Yeah, so this is the handler for adding a pod, and there's
environment variables.
Hooks to just grab get all the parameters. So there's Kubernetes arguments that we get directly from the parameters into this command arg, and that includes the pod namespace. So this is the net namespace, and it has the container ID and stuff like that. So I just basically used that to connect to. I used that in the parameters from the CNI network config. So you can see that there's a kube config here that the install script creates. That kube config from that service account that the manifest sets up, and then gives it to this the plugin config. So that's how I connect to the Kubernetes API server, and then it just gets some.
Okay. So I think I get the idea. We would like to not have to connect to the Cube API server.
That'd be nice, yeah.
That makes us
would require some change to what the CNI gives us.
So can you speak to what you need from CNI? Because I'm a maintainer on that project, and I can try to represent your interests at our next meeting.
Yeah, I think
hold on a second. I'm not sure we actually need parameters passed in CNI. Kubelet copies files into the pod before starting.
Yes.
That contain pod metadata, which we could read.
Yeah, we could read the pod directly, yes, instead of connecting to API server.
Okay.
So
yeah, I'm not familiar with.
So I have one more question, which I think I'm probably struggling to understand. So the kubelet which runs on the host node needs access to this file, right? Which needs to be on /etc/some CNI.d, which is on the host file system. And if you're running on a managed Kubernetes cluster, for example, GKE, and you run a daemon set, do you get access to the host file system directly?
If you're privileged, yes.
Yeah, I mean, at GKE we did. I don't know if that's...
Yeah, if you're privileged, sure.
You can run privileged and...
Then you get access to the host file system?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Tim...
Including the one on master?
No, master, you don't have access to the master, API server master. But
right, so doesn't this thing need adding that file to the master as well?
No.
Only if we wanted to run sidecars on the master.
So it's nothing to the Istio system control plane at all. In any way, those don't usually run on the master. But yeah,
right. In fact, they're deliberately partitioned from it for security reasons.
Right.
Okay. That any sense.
So yeah, you just run a privileged daemon set on. That's how you add the files. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So Tim, I'm looking at your YAML file. I saw you have host network equals true. I don't see you have privilege true. Is that required?
Privilege is required.
Because I don't see it on your install Istio CNI YAML file.
Sorry, you broke up there a little bit, Lynn.
Yeah, I was just saying I don't see it in your Istio install Istio CNI file. We're trying to understand the exact requirement because I'd like to try it in the cloud, basically based on what Sharon was just raising. So I saw you have this host network equals true, but I don't see privilege true. I'm trying to, is that accurate based on what you've been deployed?
Yeah, at least with GKE. So I just uploaded today a new version with the GKE manifest, and if you run the manifest under a service account that has cluster admin, this works.
Oh, cluster admin, not privilege.
Cluster admin and host network true. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Which makes sense, right? I mean,
yeah, that's true. You don't want anybody mess this up.
So Tim, this is John. Slightly different question about the moving needs for IP tables. I was looking at a similar approach to CERT, essentially virtual functions into pods.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Thanks for sending that.
And your stuff looks a lot better than what I did, so that's great. Well, what I did was basically, as somebody mentioned earlier, I created a VE pair and I stuck a new network namespace to route all traffic in and out of it. And that even removes the needs for IP tables. So you don't need any IP tables. You can force all traffic through a new network namespace that's between the node switch and the ETH0.
Did you run Envoy in a new network namespace and you basically created the VETH pair between the container and Envoy running in the other network namespace?
I didn't use Envoy. I created my own little sample VNF to do that. So exactly that, yes. So I used network plugin, device plugin to do this, which was a little hacky. But I think what Tim's done makes it a lot easier, and I think I'll try to take Tim's code and do exactly the same thing.
How did you run Envoy? I mean, because
no, he didn't run Envoy.
Oh, you didn't run Envoy. Okay.
I think that's a challenge because with a CNF, you usually just move low-level packets around. You're not having sockets, but it gets a lot faster. You can do a lot faster, and then you can do things like DPDK and stuff. So you've got lower latency. So
there are some changes to Envoy needed to do this kind of stuff.
No,
small changes.
Like Envoy can bind to an interface and capture star.
I'm not entirely sure it can today. That's
all right. So that's the thing to test.
That's the thing we need to
theory,
double check. Yeah, no. Theory, yeah. That's the change I was thinking.
It's not like it needs to implement a user space IP stack.
No. You can just bind to the ports and to the VIPs, and that works. I mean, with raw socket permission, it's perfectly fine. But we need to verify that they have the raw socket permission, whatever. That
was one of the questions, right? Because if you can do that, then you can get rid of IP tables. You don't worry about what applications are running on the pod. It becomes irrelevant.
Right. We don't worry about contract or any of that crap.
And then you can stick in any proxy, whether it's NGX or anything. It just becomes a standard.
But is it a shared proxy?
No, that's not. No. You get an interface per, and you bind whichever proxy.
I see. Okay, so it's a VETH pair, and then you basically have an Envoy running on each of those things.
Yeah. Right. So there are kind of three distinct problems here, right? One is the CNI initialization. There's how do we do network capture, and then how do we schedule the proxy? How do we run the proxy that we want to run in the context we want to run it?
But the problem is that if you're running in separate network namespace, you're going to be out of the pod, right? And that means you don't have access to secrets, and so it's
you're in the pod. You're in the pod. It's just that the trick I did was I changed the network namespace, not the rest of the namespaces.
To be clear, there are options here.
Network namespaces in the pod, then.
Yes.
If you want to, but you can also have not run in the pod and have the secrets visible only inside the Envoy pod, which is actually a security benefit because sometimes it's better if you have the vEthernet pair, you can actually get out of the pod completely and have complete isolation between the sidecar and the application. So only the sidecar which is secrets.
It's no longer a sidecar now; it's inline.
Right. Yeah. That seems like because you could still use Kubernetes to manage your Envoy pods, then, right?
Yeah.
So that's the fourth question, which is that part is actually debatable, right?
Yeah.
Right, but whether we actually strictly need that or not.
Because that's the resource accounting is a separate issue for that.
Right. So if you look at and I wrote this up in the doc that I sent out, most operators don't actually care.
Yeah.
Right. It's only in situations where you're doing multi-tenancy on a node that the resource accounting is actually going to become a serious concern. What most operators care about is that they can audit that the envoys are doing what they're supposed to be doing from a security perspective.
And I thought about this resource allocation. I mean, technically, there are ways to kind of work around this. I mean, we can, because you can adjust the CPU per. I mean,
no, it's not allocation; it's attribution.
Attribution, attribution and allocation. Both of them are problem because allocation is also big. It's even a bigger problem because you don't want to have all the CPUs taken by pods and not have any CPU for sidecars. So both of them need to be solved, but I think both can be solved.
Yeah, in an ideal way, right? The existing Kubernetes mechanisms for resource consumption attribution
and allocation
would be in play, even if the Envoy was logically invisible to the application code inside the pod.
Yeah.
So we need to just find some recommendation for that.
Yeah.
But I think we have options. Like it sounds like we have a variety of options.
We do have options.
So like coming back to the points you enumerated, right? The first one is like what this proposal addresses. Right? So where do we do this like redirection of the traffic? And it seems like
source capture.
Yeah. So it seems like people are excited about this solution. Like, is there anybody who disagrees or think that's because I'm personally excited about this, and I want to know like if there's somebody who is not excited or who think we should do something else.
Cool feeling.
Huh?
Yeah, so quick question, Tim, is your steps ready for somebody else to try? I know you guys tried GKE, obviously we'd like to try it on the other clouds too. Not to say we're not excited, we are excited to try.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I think they are. So yeah, please, if you want to take it and ping me if you have problems. I think that it's pretty simple in the from the code. I can probably bring somebody up to speed in an hour or two.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll wait to hear like from you, Lynn, from Shriram, or like all the interested parties, but hopefully like there won't be major roadblocks with that, right? So I think we might, like, it's very likely we will go ahead with this, like going with the CNI, doing the redirection inside the CNI plugin, right? And then next we can tackle like how we capture that traffic. Right now it's IP table, maybe we can do eBPF for the Vs, but I would actually like to see more from John, like what he did exactly. I'm super curious about that option. But I mean, I have it's more of a gut feeling. I don't know that may work.
Well, so I think there's a couple of things, right? So just, it's, does anybody from Cloud Foundry want to jump in on this?
Hey, yeah, it sounds good to us. Like we're using CNI. If we can make a plugin that's cross-platform, that's great.
Okay. So I think there's a couple of things that need to happen if we're going to kind of consistently like move forward on this as an organization, right? So one, we need to write a document. Two, we should get this into the Istio org, right? So that people can collaborate under those auspices. Assuming that we all agree, then we would essentially sponsor that work. Three, who's going to work on it? Like who has bandwidth? What different skills are people going to be able to bring to the table here? Obviously, we want to balance those things out. And then that design doc should probably come with phases, right? Where we start with the simplest thing that Tim has, and then we go all the way up to wild and crazy user space IP stacks and other funk like DPDK. Yeah. And at some point, there's going to have to be performance testing.
And testing in general.
Right, and then I think there's a couple of different tracks within the project. Yeah. Right, there's folks who can work on the resource attribution side, and there's folks who can work on the networking side. Yeah. And at some point, there are going to be folks who are going to work on the hot upgrade side, right?
Yeah. Do we have to couple all that stuff though? Can we not unhitch those?
I think we can. I think they can go in separate tracks. We just need people to say that they're going to own those bits.
Totally. Yeah. It's like we're definitely interested in hot reload, and I've been talking with you some about that, Louis.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure we also prioritize the short term, at least the things we discussed, optimization, so we for the startup time of the sidecar.
Yeah, that's a critical thing.
That's kind of critical.
Capture. That is that's probably of all the things that we have. Once we have basic capture working, that would be the next most important thing for the health of the project. Yeah. Because otherwise we're going to go spend resources right now on doing like container sequence startups for the injection stuff. Yeah. Like Nate was going to go do that.
Yeah, sure. So like Shriram just merged some PR that helps to address some of that.
But it's without the Kubernetes fix, like we're always going to have problems.
Yes. Well, but yeah, so there needs to be a design there as well, because there's a lot of complexity around policy and security.
We don't need that anymore, right?
Huh?
If you have CNI plugin,
if we go with this option,
Envoy startup is inherently a problem of security and policy. Yeah. Like there's a bunch of different stuff that we need to address there, right?
Absolutely.
Like you can't just allow traffic in and out while you're waiting for Envoy to be configured, for example.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, so on the Google side, right now, most of our folks are super focused on fixing the kind of the config scale-up issues. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right, we're spending a lot of time on that. That work is obviously entirely orthogonal to this. I can get consulting help from the GKE and Kubernetes experts on whatever, particularly on the resource attribution side, and I can get Tim to consult on this, so we know what we're doing is solid. Hopefully, I can go chat with the Calico folks and the Cilium folks and get some guidance from them too. And they're obviously out there doing combination product pitches anyway, so I think they'd be motivated to talk about it. Spike, I don't know if you want to say anything on that subject.
I think he dropped out of the call earlier.
Okay, maybe I have to go to a real meeting.
And are we targeting this for one maybe? I mean, the regions, that is the basic stuff that is.
So the other thing that we can do here at Google is we can go around our customers and ask them. Yeah. Right, and we can go do some actual product management work. Yeah. So I can go and follow up on that and get some feedback. Having talked to the product manager already, particularly about the security stuff, I think they'd be broadly in favor. I think they actually prefer it.
Of running envoys outside of the pod, or?
Yes. So what we're hearing is that the kind of security model, which is the sidecar as part of your application, is not actually what operators want. What they really want is they want to verify that the sidecar is doing what they expect, right, in terms of secret management, right? And they don't want that to be under the control of the application, right? So what the operators, the cluster operators want to be able to do is audit that sidecars are running, that they're not violating trust domains, and that they're running in a manner that they control and not the application. And so, in fact, to some degree or other, sidecars being injected into the pod and them not totally controlling that process is actually a downside right now.
So, but the other model that is, are these sidecars going to run outside the pod namespace? And
well, if the application developers have no control over where they run, then the only requirement we have to meet is the operator requirement.
True. So then we run all the envoys but then we still run them as separate containers just for some isolation, right? I mean,
right. Yeah, I mean, we still have that isolation. We still want
the multi-tenant envoy. Yeah.
Right. We still want resource attribution.
So when you say a different
cases, yeah. No,
resource attribution for most people is not actually a priority.
Yeah, and I would add that we can also improve the way we opt out of. Right now, we put an annotation to not have injection. If we go this way, we can say, hey, if you have a cluster permission on your service accounts, then you can opt out. Otherwise, you are in. So instead of doing that, you just put an annotation, you're out. We can make it more secure and enforceable, basically.
Yeah. I mean, this is not going to resolve connectivity issues that people have, like headless services and all that other stuff.
Right. I
mean, at the same time, but the question is, will this also resolve any of the health check issues? So I don't know if Kubelet is actually going to talk to the.
Yes, it can, because we now control the lifecycle of the health check if we're using a daemon set.
How does that let us control health check lifecycle?
Sorry, it lets us control Envoy health checking separately from pod health checking.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
And the timing of it.
So basically, we can start the sidecar, wait until it's completely initialized, and nothing will run until it's completely initialized.
Right, but the Kubernetes health check will still go through Envoy into the application.
Yes.
That's why it makes the same.
Yeah, but for example, we could make Envoy startup part of the CNI hook. So the pod isn't even scheduled until Envoy is started.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
No, I think something different. I think we should have a pool of envoys that are warmed up and ready.
Well, we can do all kinds of optimizations.
Right? Like they would be ready to take on the traffic. You don't start them as part of the CNI hook, right? Like.
Well, so that's another level of optimization that becomes available, but one thing at a time, I think.
Yeah. But we could fix the health check completely if you're not running as part of the pod namespace by effectively trying to putting a hole in that whole IP table stuff, which says like if you're coming from the kubelet with this IP, since we're running on the daemon set and so on, we know the IP address that the kubelet is actually going to use. Then we can put stuff in the IP table such that traffic is not captured. In other words, which actually allows us to get rid of this health check issue completely, right?
We could do that as well. Yeah, I think that's.
Well, but there's still an inherent just Envoy health check issue too. Like that only addresses part of the problem, right? Like Envoy still has to be ready to serve, and if the application starts up first and is empty, you're still broken.
Right. So we can cleanly separate those two things.
Yes.
And that's really important, right? Particularly when it comes to upgrade or diagnosing issues. Like if Envoy's gone sideways, what does the cluster operator do?
Yep.
So Louis, speaking a bit of timing and sequencing, I don't think it makes sense to delay 1.1 until we have this full thing ready. I think it makes sense.
I don't know when 1.1 is right
now. Right now there is actually nothing too much pending in 1.1 because I think we will drop the incremental XDS. So basically 1.1 can be ready soon.
So the other things that in theory were in 1.1 were more work on a la carte install.
Yeah.
And Galley.
And Palo decomposition.
Yes.
So if those are ready, we're ready with 1.1. And what I want to propose is actually to make this feature exactly in this current form with IP table redirection. And we still have injection in the pod, part of 1.1.
So that comes back to my question about who's available to work on it.
I think Tim.
Don't forget.
Well, no. So there's a lot of stuff we just covered, right? So health checking and timing issues, I think, would be worthwhile evaluating the 1.1 if somebody could pick it up.
Right.
But the first step is to get a design doc.
Right, but let me ask you a question. So when you say health checking and other things, are they still with injected sidecar or with the pool of envoys?
It doesn't.
So-
It doesn't really matter. I don't think.
And
Does
we'll
it?
both-
If we could stop injecting at all, I think that would be a big usability win.
I agree completely. I'm just wondering, like, again, like who's available, and I don't want us to, like, I'd like us to delete incremental things. And from my point of view, we have something that is a big step forward already, like even with this prototype, right? And then we can like worry about the other things for one too, because I don't think it's feasible to do it soon.
No, I think let's get a design doc together. Let's list out the phases of the project. Let's figure out who can commit to doing what and when. And let's let those people do the work. And if it fits in 1.1, it does. And if it doesn't, then it will come on a later release.
So maybe on Friday.
But we should do some prioritization of like the trade. If we deliver, say, the health checking feature, right, that prevents Nate from going to have to do a bunch of other stuff. And what else are we saving by doing that? We should figure out like where we get our value.
Yeah.
So Shirama is probably online already, but there is zero VPN work that he's doing that also probably we want to get in 1.1.
Yeah.
Yes, everything needs to be tested. I mean, the missing part in 1.1 is that we need to do stabilization testing and a lot of other stuff that takes months, and it's far more difficult. I mean, that's wonderful. We have the code, but 90% of the work will be testing it and load testing it and multiple clusters and all the other stuff.
Right, and we need everybody to participate in that. Like if we start like adding now new features like moving to a pool of envoys, that will definitely.
I don't think that will happen in 1.1. I mean, that's
The nice thing about this is this can actually be delivered entirely independently.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. We could rev this outside.
So like Shriram and I created an Istio ecosystem GitHub org the other day to start putting some projects in, or maybe
I would put this in. I would say straight Istio org.
Sure, that's fine too.
If we're all in agreement that this is going to happen and has these benefits, we should
maybe
commit.
it can be in a separate Git repository.
That should definitely be in a separate repo.
Okay.
Right.
And I think that I see the point that it can be done independently. So this is technically completely orthogonal to the version of Istio, so we can decouple the releases.
There may the one thing that we want to land in upstream is just the option to remove the init container as part of the helm chart. That would be the only thing that I would think of.
That it can be done at any time anyway.
That's a
that's easy.
configuration of
Right.
So I have a quick question, Costin. You talk about the zero VPN. Is that different than the program you have, or something else?
No, there's a PR from Shriram that you are reviewing.
Hey folks, for folks who are volunteering to help, open up the notes doc, put your name, and that's probably the easiest way to track it. And then we'll come back once we.
Name and GitHub handle or something. So
and what piece do you think you want to work on?
Yeah, and thank you very much for volunteering. That's very nice.
So you mentioned a design document. Do you think it's one design document or a couple for some of these various?
I think it's worthwhile having a high level kind of outline of the different pieces of the project. We can always do more detailed ones phase by phase, right? But we roughly know the different pieces. And we just need a broader description of them and what their dependencies and interactions might be, and a delivery schedule associated with them. Like if we're going to do like VETH bridging, right? There'd probably be a more detailed design doc for that, but I think we can write like a couple of paragraph outline of that.
Sure.
And then we could kind of figure out where they're going to order.
The benefit trade-offs and time estimate are kind of.
Yeah.
So we can. Who volunteers to do that?
The design doc? I can write an outline, and then I can plug people who have more expertise in some of these areas. But Tim did the original work. I think Tim should probably be the primary author.
No good.
Are you okay with that, Tim?
Yeah, I could start it and make those sections for like VETH bridging and all that stuff. But yeah, I was thinking more of them on the incremental change when I did this. But yeah, that's. I'll have to, see if we can.
Yeah. So okay, I'll work with Tim, but Tim can be the primary author. He gets credit. First mover advantage, Tim. And then we'll all pile on to make sure that we've fleshed out the ideas and make sure the things are covered. And we'll do another pass to just flesh out details and get a broader review. It shouldn't take too long. In the meantime, though, I think we should forge ahead with the repo. I don't see any reason to hold back.
Yeah.
So, Tim, do you need any help? You'll probably need to talk with Martin or Shriram also. One of them, I think, can create the repo. right? Or
yeah, we can create it as well.
Or somebody who's admin can create the repo, and then you just do the.
And I'll be happy to set this Circle CI integration and some minimal.
Yeah, that's going to be where the work, adding the test.
Yeah, there's obviously going to be a bunch of stuff that has to happen.
But so are we thinking this project inside of Istio repo, or do we need a separate project? So are we thinking Istio/Istio? Or
no, it's a separate repo in the Istio org.
Yeah, it's like Istio / CNI.
And yeah. Oh.
Yep. And we'll spend a week discussing the name of the Git repository.
No, it's CNI.
No, Zach got it exactly right.
Yeah. Okay, Zach.
Hold on, actually, I think Tim has a say here.
I vote Istio/CNI.
Okay,
good.
I can create it.
Okay, I wonder if we have 2 more minutes, and I would love for once in a year to end the meeting in time. Like, do we have burning things or?
Is this where I throw that under the bus and say, let's talk about node upgrade?
No more. And zero VPN, we can talk in the environment meeting next week,
yes.
right?
All
so,
right. Yep.
I mean, yeah, we have to keep it also a bit in time.
Yeah, just a little bit of advertising. We just add to the agenda for the environment workgroup meeting. We're going to show a demo on some of the multi-cluster configuration automation. So if you guys are interested, please join next Wednesday. I think it's 1 o'clock Eastern.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should get virtual network ID on the schedule for the next one.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, actually. Yeah.
Well,
all right. So
I'll implement it by then, and it's.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Tim, for, I think this is brilliant. And hope to see you again in 2 weeks.
In 1 week.
Environment meeting in 1 week. Yeah, I'm not working in 2 weeks. All right.
We can't wait. Bye.
Yes, I'm right on time. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
Yeah, we have Jim.